Hello, everybody at Santa Clarita WordCamp 2020, and welcome. I want to introduce an amazing person who's going to speak for the next 40 minutes or so. And he is photojournalist, artist, and arts educator, Glenn Zucman, and he teaches at Long Beach State. He uses WordPress for art projects, for creating culture, and for expressing identity. So let's have a big round of applause for Glenn Zucman.
Hi, welcome to WordCamp Santa Clarita Valley. Welcome to Sustainable WordPress. I would like this talk to be as interactive as possible. Obviously, we're not together face-to-face, but I'd still like to use YouTube to interact if we can. So in the YouTube comments, the chat comments, feel free to ask questions and interact. And actually, I have a few questions for you that I would like to ask to get started. And the first one is, what type of websites do you work on? Do you create blogs, e-commerce sites, portfolios, marketing? So if you all want to type in the chat, I'll take a look and see what you're all working on. And hi, Joseph, and hi, Chris. So I think there's maybe a minute delay between this and the chat, so it'll take just a minute to hear your answers. And since we have a little bit of a delay, let me ask the second question so you can already be answering that as well. So the first question is what types of websites you work on. The second question is, what role do you play? Are you a designer? Are you a developer, front end, back end, writer, etc.? Love to know how you're using WordPress or the other tools that you might be using. This would be you typing. Oh, look, it's me looking at the screen. Okay, so we do have a little bit of a delay, but hopefully, there we go. Chris says he works on blogs, identity sites, wikis. Awesome. Joseph works on a higher education website. Now everybody's coming. Okay. Justin Music works on a music blog. Carol works on a blog, ePortfolio. Joseph works at Pitzer College and says hi. Blake works on small business website, e-commerce. So a pretty wide range of things, university libraries, portfolio sites, B2B sites. Great. And then let me know what roles you play. And let me ask you the next question, since we do have about a minute delay, I think. So question number 3 is, the content that you're part of creating, whether you're a writer or you're developing and facilitating other people's content, how long would you like, or do you anticipate, or does it occur to you that that content might be live online? Is it as long as this marketing campaign is going and then it's gone, who cares? Is it, I'd like my grandkids to be able to read this years from now? Or, you know, what kind of time frame in terms of a marketing goal or a cultural or family goal, or in terms of, I think my content should be up for 5 years and I don't care after that? So some kind of time frame of how long you'd like your content to be around. Chris wears all the hats: designer, developer. Vin works on the back end. Joseph's a web developer, provides support to staff. Carol's a contributor. Justin does it all, the entire department. Lewis says too many hats. Carol's admin. Ralph's strategy, content, hosting, maintenance. Yeah, I think I do all that poorly, but I've run, I don't know, many dozens of websites. A few of them are actually for clients, but a lot of them, as Ron mentioned in the intro, are different art projects I've got out there. Chris says a 3-minute delay. I think maybe it's only a minute. I'm not sure, but yeah, we do have a bit of a delay. So let me ask you my fourth question, and then I'll dive into some ideas. The fourth question is, it's, welcome to 2020. It's April, so it's still kind of early in the year. Has anything unexpected, anything surprising, anything you didn't anticipate happened so far in 2020? Tell me what that might be. Mary does a little bit of everything. This last year, she's been editing copy. Lucky Cat Creative, 2-minute delay. Joseph says, I accept that anything we post online is permanent, especially what we don't want people to see. Yeah, I think Joseph has a key concept here, which is anything lame or embarrassing will be online forever. But my question is, the content that you intentionally post and that you would like to be online, how long is that going to be up there? Megan says, leave blog posts up only until they become embarrassing. I'd like, Lewis, okay, here we go. I'd like all my commercial work to be replaced in 12 to 36 months, but not my personal or research work. The content lives longer than some projects. One would hope that, Chris says, one would hope that everything I put online lives forever. That's kind of where I started from. But honestly, I don't think it will outlive my lifetime times 2. And that's with a lot of sunshine and hope. Yeah, so Chris pretty much summarized where we're at, what motivated me to give this talk. How long is this stuff going to live? So Joseph says, question 4, I didn't expect to be working remote. I love it. Yes, so tell me more unexpected things in 2020. Mary does everything, still some print. Yay, print. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about whether our WordPress websites are going to survive. Would you be better off with a book? But then there's fire. Books don't necessarily last forever either. Chris says, I can't wait to look back at millions of mini plague journals that will exist from this year. Femi says on Q4, getting a lot of one-on-one time with myself. Yes, we all are. So rather than wait too long for the delay, let me jump in and tell you. So obviously one thing that we were not expecting was, of course, the coronavirus pandemic. But another thing that at least I hadn't expected or was surprised in 2020 was the death of Kobe Bryant at 41. That was a pretty big shock, I think, for people in Los Angeles. My students at Long Beach State really actually were quite shaken by that. And among other things, it gave them the occasion to think about their own mortality in ways that they hadn't really considered before. So the death of Kobe Bryant and those 8 other people in the helicopter was a tragic event. But the good news, at least, is that his life, his legacy is well documented. If you drop by his Wikipedia article, it's a remarkable document. It's just pages and pages long with this big summary and, high school NBA draft, national team player, on and on and on. So much information. It's remarkable. All of these stats, it's info about the life, the legacy, the achievements, the records, the awards, the championships, the human failings. his tragic death. Everything's here. And if you keep scrolling, eventually you get down to these footnotes. There's 509 footnotes on this Kobe Wikipedia article. So even though Kobe is gone, what he achieved is still with us. But what I want to talk about is Kobe's achievements through this guy. So the guy in the number 24 jersey is my friend Abdoulaye, who's from Dakar, Senegal. In the middle, that's me. And the guy in the Syria t-shirt is Terry from Tokyo. So in March 2016, they both came and stayed at my place for a while. I remember walking into the living room and seeing the guy from Senegal and the guy from Tokyo talking to each other in fluent French. And what's kind of cool about that little piece of my memory of this is that I had actually completely forgotten that they both spoke French. But I only remembered it when I went and looked at my WordPress blog that documented their visit and mentioned that. So that's a little piece of, you know, my own organic memory that had already faded away. And thanks to this offline, off-brain WordPress memory, it was preserved. So in March 2016, Abdoulaye traveled from Dakar across the breadth of the Atlantic, across the breadth of North America to Los Angeles, 6,264 miles one way, 12,500 miles round trip. Why did he do that? He did that to go to the Staples Center and pay a fortune for a still nosebleed seat to watch Kobe Bryant play one of his last games in the NBA. It turned out the Lakers actually lost that game. And when Abdoulaye came home that night, he said that it was one of the peak experiences of his life. And by the way, that number 24 jersey that you see him wearing in the photo, he did not buy that at the Staples Center. He got that back home in Senegal and proudly wore it on his 6,000-mile journey to Los Angeles. So what I'd like you to consider is that when we look at this Kobe Bryant Wikipedia article, it's so massive with so much information and detail. It's incredible. I would like you to consider that this Wikipedia article tells you everything there is to know about Kobe Bryant's life, except why this guy would travel 12,500 miles to watch Kobe lose a basketball game and still say it was one of the peak experiences of his life. That Wikipedia article, while valuable, is still not the whole story. That what Kobe meant to an individual like Abdoulaye is as important as anything else. So if we think about this human adventure, Homo sapiens have been on this earth biologically for maybe 100,000 years. Culturally, we have existed for maybe 40,000 years. And obviously, history is about 6,000 years. So for 6,000 years, we have been pretty good at documenting, at preserving, at remembering the adventures of the 1% of the 1%. We have been pretty good at remembering what Kobe Bryant did. We've been pretty good at remembering what Julius Caesar did. We have been not very good about remembering what the life of an ordinary Roman was like, what the life of an ordinary Greek was like, what the life of Abdoulaye Sane was like, and what Kobe Bryant might have meant to him. Fortunately, we have WordPress and other open source tools. So today, not only are Kobe Bryant and Julius Caesar remembered in detail, but Abdoulaye and you and I can all blog about our adventures and create a richer, more complete history about how the actual humanity lives than we've ever been able to tell before. So that's my story. Congratulations, we're done. Oops, we're not quite done. I forgot one part. Everything I just told you, that's the good news. Now we have to do part 2, which is the not so good news. So let me show you where we're headed with this. So we have, we said hello, we said a little bit about Kobe, a little bit about why Abdoulaye would fly 12,500 miles to watch Kobe play basketball, and how WordPress, almost for the first time in human history, we have the ability to share the stories, not just of these rare elite people, but of how actual human beings live and work. So where I'd like to go from there is to talk a little bit about my dad's Kodachrome slides, about the vulnerabilities in your website. I have a spoiler alert that you might not like, but we'll get there. Want to talk about your digital afterlife, the California Privacy Expectation Afterlife and Choices Act, whether or not your legacy is just a big bunch of Jenga blocks destined to fall to the ground soon enough, and look at some more Kodachrome slides, and then share the international sustainability symbol, which looks a little bit like a WordPress W with you. So let's dive into my birthday. So this is me and mom at just a few miles away from here, actually, at Kaiser Hospital on Sunset Boulevard on June 25th, 1955, the day of my birth. That's me, that's mom, photo by dad. It's one of his Kodachrome slides. Here's his Leica M3 that he took that picture with. So here's the thing about this picture. Dad, who took this photo, passed away in 2008. Mom, who's smiling at me so wonderfully, actually passed away last year, 2019. And as you might know, in a sense, the Eastman Kodak Company also passed away. They declared bankruptcy some years ago. But Dad's Kodachrome slide is still glowing and beautiful and perfect as it was so many decades ago. My question about WordPress is, will it be the exact opposite? With these Kodachrome slides, we have perfect memories, beautifully preserved, even though the company that created that film went bankrupt. WordPress, as you know, is an incredibly dominant CMS online. I think maybe Drupal is number 2, and they're much smaller. Squarespace and those other folks are tiny, tiny in comparison. So I'm feeling pretty good about WordPress, the platform, living on. But unlike this image where the Kodachrome slide is still beautiful, even with Eastman Kodak Company declaring bankruptcy, will it be the case that WordPress, the platform, survives and maintains well, but our individual stories, Abdoulaye's story of going to see Kobe Bryant, that those stories are lost? So Stephanie Savage said, no one wants to die and discover that all you have to pass on to the next generation is your Facebook page. Daniel Walmsley said, any unmaintained website is going down, period. So here's the Mona Lisa at the Louvre in Paris. We care so much about this painting that it is protected behind 1.52 inches of bulletproof glass. It's at a constant 43 Fahrenheit temperature and 50% humidity. We have really made an effort to take this little painting on a rotting piece of wood and preserve it for the future. Is that the way we're going to treat our WordPress websites? Are we going to give them that kind of care? Or is my story and your story and Abdoulaye's story just going to be another Citizen Kane rosebud sled on the ash heap, the digital ash heap? So what can we say about WordPress? WordPress is a robust open source project, yay. A vast developer community, yay. It's a solid, stable, secure platform, yay. It's also true that there are millions of individual sites that may or may not be updated, and that individual sites are filled with themes and plugins that may develop vulnerabilities sooner or later. So I'm a little nervous about the future of all of these stories that we've used WordPress to tell. So this actually is a few years back. I found this really cool theme. It did some fun stuff, and I installed it, and it was great for a little while. And it turned out that theme actually had a vulnerability. So, I'm not a system administrator. Well, I mean, I am in the sense that I'm the only person really responsible for my stuff, but I'm definitely not. So I went to school, taught classes. My host actually emailed me at some point that there was a vulnerability in my theme and there were some problems, but I wasn't paying attention to off-campus email. I was teaching classes. And then half hour after the first email, they said, yeah, we're taking all your sites down. And so everything was gone. And if you went, for example, to go look at my mom's website of family Easter party pictures, this is what you would see. So side note to the web hosts out there, if you do have to take a site down, maybe you could have a nicer screen, a friendlier screen than this. Maybe it could even be specific to the site. And maybe it could say something like, technical difficulties, we hope to have this website back up soon, rather than putting up this screen, which kind of makes it look like my mom is a terrorist. But the reality is, again, themes, plugins, they can be problematic. So this is Marie Dodson. I don't know if any of you know her. She's actually today the editorial director of branded content for NASDAQ, but she was a former editor of Torque magazine, and we met at a WordCamp and talked about sustainability. And I kind of outlined the problem really well, but I didn't outline too many solutions. And she said, you can't just tell us all our sites are going down and then leave us hanging. You have to give us the answer. So, spoiler alert, I don't actually have the answer. But here's a few quick thoughts that maybe can help with websites. Maybe managed hosting instead of a VPS. HTML and the URL are pretty solid. They're really core at this point. It doesn't seem like they're going to go away. WordPress or any dynamic content, if you're really thinking about the future, are going to be pretty iffy. Static HTML, it's a much safer way to go if you want that content to outlive you. Plugins, I think, are a nightmare. They do all kinds of fun things, but they're really problematic. So a plugin that's updated frequently is better, but as you know, WordPress, the platform, has a gigantic developer community. The average open source project has, the number of developers working on the average open source project is 1. So I don't know for plugins, but I'm going to guess it's similar, that there's probably 1. So even if you find a plugin that's updated all the time, that developer's going to get hit by a bus. They're going to have a second child and no longer have time to mess with that. I think plugins, in the grand scheme of things, are almost always going to be problematic. Using a larger hosting service, it probably makes sense. As you know, over the years, lots of things go down. Drop by the WordPress Codex, go to Hardening WordPress. There's a lot of tips that can help you make a site that's more likely to stay up. Password advice, complicated passwords don't seem to make a difference, but two-factor authentication does. And one sort of positive note is that MySQL seems pretty solid, so that even if your site goes down, it could be the case that if in the future, your grandkids dig up that database and put a theme on it, it may not look exactly as it did when you had it, but it could still be live. And I know at a WordCamp, in my experience from talking to people at WordCamps, most people are WordPress.org users. I don't think there are too many WordPress.com users. And WordPress.com has its pros and cons, but as a hosted service, they might take care of your content better than your niece will after you're gone. Okay. Ron, how are we doing on the chat? Has anybody said anything we should talk about?
Yeah, there's one question that I noticed, and I'm not sure if it's, well, this is a little bit humorous. Should we carve all of our WordPress articles into stone, or perhaps titanium?
Well, yeah, it's we'll come back to that. I mean, yeah, I think I mean, that's a joke, but it's also the right question. And I think it's going to be a combination of thinking about how long we want things to last, what steps we can take to help them be preserved, and probably also accepting that not everything we say needs to be in stone. So let's say a little bit about your digital afterlife. Let me show you a quick video.
98% of us will die at some point in our lives.
The darkness is creeping towards you, whether you know it or not.
So a little planning can go a long way.
Listen, leaving your big old corpse behind for your loved ones to deal with ain't cool.
That's why you should call McCready Funeral Service.
McCready's. They'll find the hole and build the box.
Bodies that look so good, you're going to want to talk to it.
So there's your reality. 98% of people will die in their life. Here's a few numbers I came across in a Guardian article recently. A 2011 McAfee survey, they found that the average American valued their digital assets at around $55,000. 2012 estimate was that almost 3 million Facebook users per year or that year will die. 2015, the average internet user had about 90 accounts online. And if you do a Google or do a search for something like social media after death service, you'll find a bunch of things. Here's a particularly amusing one called Entrusted. Let me show you their video.
I'm here with Jesse Davis, who is the founder of Entrusted, which is an online resource for your digital assets. We have wills for our material things, but what do you do with your online things when you go? What exactly does your company do?
So Entrusted was started in 2008. We started after reading The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman. He talks about Justin Ellsworth, who was a U.S. Marine killed in Iraq, and his parents didn't have much to remember him by, so they wanted access to his Yahoo account. So they asked Yahoo for access. Yahoo said no way, it's against their terms of service. It went to court, and 3 months later, a judge actually said, okay, hand over all of the accounts to Justin's parents. And so it's sort of made 2 points. One, these are real assets that you can treat as your own assets, and you should plan for. And two, sort of raised the question of, well, what if Justin didn't want his parents reading every single email he had ever sent or received? So what Entrusted does is list all of your digital assets, which is any online account that you own or any file that's stored on your computer. And if you want them passed to people, you can identify up to 10 different heirs to pass them on to. And you select a digital executor, so someone who actually receives all the information after you pass away and makes the transfers and deletions. For certain things like a Facebook account, I'd probably give it to a trusted friend. For something like an email account, I may want it deleted. For a blog that I make some sort of advertising revenue on, I would probably pass it on to a kid. My brother and I share family photos, so I would leave my Picasa, web albums to my brother. Mm-hmm. Facebook has 112 million users. By the way, 285,000 of them will die this year. So this is a huge problem for them. It's a huge problem for any company. Facebook is probably the most proactive about all of these problems. A family member or a friend can sign on to Facebook and report the passing, and they do a memorialized status. Gmail, if you play around far enough into the help pages of Google, you'll eventually stumble upon what they do. And what it is you have to collect like 5 different legal documents, and you bundle them all up into a manila envelope, and you send it to Mountain View, California, and then 6 to 8 weeks later, magically will show up on your door. And that's a huge inefficiency. There's no way for companies to know when users have passed away. Mm-hmm. And even if they did know that the users have passed away, they don't know what they had wanted done with it. So we developed the corporate partnership program. They can log into their corporate partner account on our website, and in real time, they'll be updated, who's alive, who's dead, mm-hmm. and whether they had wanted it transferred or deleted. So it's sort of a way to tidy up and make a turnkey solution for all of the companies.
What happens when you have some sensitive information online, which a lot of us have, and you don't want anyone else, dead or alive, to ever know that this has existed?
Are you familiar with a company called Ashley Madison?
I am. Isn't that the website where married people or people that are in relationships can go and date other people?
Yeah, this is true. And surprising, or maybe not surprising, is that they have approaching 5.5 million users in North America. Well, for those Tiger Woods out there, we've created a product called the Account Incinerator. that for $20 per account per year, you can actually identify those accounts that you may own, and we as a company will automatically clean them up and get rid of them before anybody happens to stumble upon them after you pass away.
Thank you very much, Jesse. And if you want to learn more, you can go to untrusted.com. I'm Ellie Roundtree, and this has been Rocket Boom Tech.
So I have good news and I have bad news, or I guess it's kind of the same news. The good news is that if you are alive and listening to this talk now, you have already outlived Entrusted, the service that we just watched a video on. That service died a few years ago, which is yet one more reminder of this fast-moving volatility of the internet. The service that was supposed to take care of your legacy after your life died before any of us did. Entrusted was actually acquired by securesafe.com, and you can kind of go down the rabbit hole of their services and figure out what's there. But it's a little bit funny that Entrusted's gone already, but it is, you know, a reminder of how elusive it is to find anything stable in this space. So if you poke around online, you'll find all kinds of services. There's one called liveson.org. With their slogan is, when your heart stops beating, you'll keep tweeting. And it's a service to tweet after you're gone. Google has a kind of a cool thing called an inactive account manager. You can give it a timeout period, and if Google doesn't hear any chirps from you for enough time, they'll send you a message and say, hey, are you still around? And if you eventually don't reply, they will notify contacts that you've specified, or they'll delete content if you've asked for that. That's some information, video, etc. Yahoo has Yahoo ending. Facebook has Facebook account memorialization, etc. So this is the California Assembly Majority Leader Ian Calderon with Governor Newsom. Calderon sponsored a bill, the Privacy Expectation Afterlife and Choices Act, which seeks to provide clarity for what should happen to our assets. So Silicon Valley companies really would probably prefer to just have your accounts be locked and frozen when you're dead, because to deal with your heirs is just too much mess for them. But what's clear is we need, you know, that 2011 survey said that people thought their digital assets were worth $55,000. I'm sure if we did a survey today, it would be much higher. These are real assets. If you think about it, a lot of your digital assets may well be worth more to you than a lot of your physical, tangible assets. And yet, unlike this long legacy of providing for what happens to physical assets, we really haven't done too much. We have this bill in California. Other states have started working on similar legislation, but you know, you've got to think, what do you want to happen? Do you want your email to be deleted? Do you want your website to go to somebody?
Okay.
So if you've been to other WordCamps, you may have seen this big, this giant Jenga game that SiteGround has been dragging around, and the blocks are labeled things like quality and integrity and cloud hosting. And if you pull too many blocks out, your whole tower falls down. And so, you know, I've argued today that that somebody like Abdullah, that his story is as important to this Kobe story as all of those impressive stats are, and yet is that just going to be a tumbling Jenga mess? So I think as we started this talk with, it makes sense to identify, what are you using WordPress or whatever tools you're using, what are we using it for? And if it's to sell, you know, commodities in some time window for some organization, you may not stop. You'll probably maintain that site as long as you're selling widgets. And when you don't sell widgets, maybe it's fine for that site to go down. But if your hope is that you would like it to stay up, it's going to be more complicated. Maybe using a platform like WordPress.com, maybe using static HTML pages. You know, maybe you can set up a trust fund and have your young niece or nephew try to update content for you. or maybe trust that the Internet Archive or the NSA will archive your content. Plugins, as I've already mentioned, seem to be just a disaster waiting to happen. I think anytime I've ever had a site go down, it's been because of plugins. And when I start to try to figure out where the problem was, the first place I'll turn is to that goofy plugin that I like, but it's only ever been downloaded 200 times. I'll take that out. That wasn't it. I'll next move on to this plugin that's really cool, but hasn't been updated for 4.5 years. That wasn't it. And it will turn out to be Jetpack, which is a huge, highly invested, highly well-maintained plugin. And yet, even that ends up taking sites down. So, one thought with plugins, if you look at the WordPress repository, it has almost 1,000 different Google Maps plugins. And if those plugins are essential to presenting the content on your page, then when whatever Google Maps plugin you've chosen develops a vulnerability or doesn't get updated, your content is now gone, isn't going to display. You can just go to Google Maps and get an embed code. So maybe skip those 1,000 Google Maps plugins and just use the embed code, which has a better chance of sticking around. So what I don't really have is a perfect solution, but I think, thinking through what your goals and intentions are and what is the most stripped down, safest way to present your content might allow it to live a little bit longer. So this is me and Mom again in a mustard field near the house. And I'm just wishing you that that your life and stories will survive as long as Dad's Kodachrome slides have survived. So
Great.
this is a hotel staff member in Shenzhen, China, giving the international sustainability symbol, which looks an awful lot like a WordPress W. So I'd love to hear your questions. We do have a little bit of a delay, but we'll work that out. And also your suggestions. I'm sure in the audience we have people far wiser than me, and some of you may have thoughts about what a way to either keep your content alive or to make peace with the fact that it may not live that much longer than you might be. Thank you.
Excellent. Glenn. I lost Glenn's audio.
Oh.
Okay, you're back.
Yay.
Glenn, I do have some questions from our esteemed audience.
Great.
And beginning with, are you taking backups yourself, and are they data and file system backups? And can you speak about that?
I could be doing better on that. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know if I should actually admit this after having given this whole talk, but for my personal work, I think a lot of what I have kind of come to in thinking about this issue for a few years now is if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? If a website goes down 5 minutes after the author stops looking at it, how much does it matter? Our lives, for those of us who are not Kobe Bryant or Julius Caesar, our lives are continuous. They are part of the human tapestry through the way we've impacted our friends and our family. But in the fullness of time, these individual lives become pretty fine fibers deep within that tapestry. And maybe our content isn't going to survive that long. Maybe you were a big YouTuber who was very popular, but you stopped vlogging or you passed away before TikTok was invented. So who has time to look at your old YouTubes? We've got an infinite supply of TikToks to look at. So in answer to the question, I could be doing more with regards to backups.
Okay. Excellent, Glenn. Hey, Glenn, another person asks, are there any good plugins for converting your site to text images and then printing it out as printed books?
I have not looked into that, but you should look into that and let me know. You have the URL for these these slides. And by the way, all of these slides are actually, my slides are WordPress pages, appropriately enough, and they all have comment boxes. So feel free to drop by. And if you have suggestions for tips or techniques or plugins that let you make books, let me know.
Yeah, Glenn will be available after this session and at lunch and after the entire day. There's some information online here. Another question, to what extent is longevity also really an accessibility problem?
Yeah, I think it's both. And, you know, we have largely rushed into new empowering things. When I was at UCLA Film School, once upon a time, we used to shoot 16mm color negative film, and you would have that process, and then you'd have a work print, a positive print made. It cost $400 for 11 minutes. And then some years later, we moved to like mini DV tapes. So now an hour was $5. And of course, now everything's just digital, and we may spend a fortune on our cameras, but 5 minutes or 5 hours doesn't cost you anything. So the explosion of, for example, video is incredible, but a lot of that film has been lost. A lot of those mini DV tapes, they're not in the, they're really grainy compared to newer cameras.
Glenn,
So,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
We're going to have to wrap this up. The most pressing question of all was, where did you get those glasses?
Oh, Valley Eyewear in Australia.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Oh, wow, there they are. Okay. Don't hit the camera. Glenn Zucman, everyone. Thank you so much, Glenn Zucman. And this was a very energetic and wonderful presentation. And we look forward to hearing from you again.
Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you face to face next time.
Live long and prosper with WordPress.